And now for the main event. Alex Sachs is going to tell us about the cameras, newest from Canon. He's going to start out with a little bit about the C300 Mark II. C300's gone 4K now, beautiful camera. And then he's going to tell us about this, I can never remember the numbers. Where's it saying on here?
On this side right here.
The ME20F-SH. What's really cool about this camera is it makes great pictures in the dark. So, Alex, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name's Alex Sachs. I'm a pro market specialist with Canon. I think I have one of the best jobs because I get to spend most of my time on set with shooters, showing them our product, developing relationships, but most importantly, getting feedback from them, really seeing what their challenges are and reporting that back to our product team. So hopefully with future products and iterations and firmwares, we're gonna move into a better system. We've only really been doing cinema for about 5 years. We have a very rich legacy of still photography, so we still have a long way to go, but I think we've made some really, really incredible strides in the last 5 years. I want to start by talking about the C300 Mark II. The camera's been out for a while, so there's probably not a lot that most people don't know. Just a couple things that I've found in the field that might be helpful if you are someone who uses the product or someone who's interested or just someone who wants to see what people are doing in the field with it. And then I want to talk about this camera, which I think is one of the most exciting cameras on the market right now. Spec-wise, it may not seem like what people want, but the more I show it to cinematographers, the more people really want to use it. So I'll start with the C300 Mark II. 4K camera, you see two of them filming right there. It's kind of the flagship camera. It's our workhorse, really, really great HD camera. So we upgraded it to 10-bit and 12-bit, and now we're doing internal 4K. And we have this incredible autofocus system. We're doing a lot of other things, but those are kind of the main bullet points. If you're looking for 4K, if you're looking for the best image that Canon can give you right now, the C300 Mark II is what we have because it offers our raw output, and it also offers a really high 410 megabits per second internal 4K codec at 10-bit. And then kind of the sweet spot on the camera is 444 12-bit in 2K or HD, which to me is the best way to manipulate color. You really want that good sampling. You want that higher bit depth, you want better color representation, but you may be shooting something for Netflix right now or somebody who has to have that 4K resolution, or they're looking to maybe reframe for HD timelines. This is our new handle. Is this coming up? Okay, great. This is our new handle. If you're familiar with our C300, the original handle just kind of went into the top of the camera with a simple screw. We've now added this kind of small cheese plate or helmet. We kind of repurposed that from Zacuto a little bit. It's an easier but much more stable way to mount the actual handle to the top of the camera. You'll see we've added some new mounting points, 3/8/16 and 1/4-20s, just things that people said, hey, I want to mount an external monitor, or I just want to mount any kind of accessory. The really cool new thing that we've added, though, is our new 15mm rod mount at the kind of bottom of the handle, which allows you, and you'll see in this photo, kind of what you can do with that. You can just put a standard 15mm rod, and in this photo I used Red Rock's accessories. This is their little spud that you can get. I don't think it's very expensive, but I put it right onto my Odyssey, and then using that right angle accessory piece was able to actually get that really, really solid. I love a Noga arm. I find that on set, the Noga arm tends to just kind of always come loose no matter how much you crank it down. It just really isn't most reliable. I found people are gaff taping them. This is a really, really solid way to mount your monitor. It's not going to spin out. It's pretty flexible too. When it comes to angles you can mount it on. So I like this. This is traditionally how people would mount like an EVF or something, but to me this is a great way to mount an external monitor in the field. So the original C300 had just a 1920 1080 SDI out. Now we're doing so much more in the C300 Mark II. We've got two of them now, and both can actually do our 4K RAW. So this is like the way to get the best image that Canon offers is 4K RAW out of the camera to a recorder. You'll need an Odyssey, you'll need codecs, you'll need Atomos. AJA makes a recorder, and I think there's Pix has the new recorder, but they don't do our RAW right now, but it's a really great product as well. So there's a lot more processing that's going on inside of this camera. Instead of just a simple HD out, we're now able to do 4K RAW out of one. You can do HD out of the bottom, so if you want to go to Video Village. We also have our HDMI out. That doesn't do any 4K, it's just HD, so probably more for an accessory output or something like that. We have a brand new display as well. This is something that's very new for Canon. We had a 30-inch display that we introduced just for high-end color grading. It was meant to live in a studio. It's very heavy. It's like 50, 55 pounds. We've now introduced our new 24-inch 4K HDR. It's a 400 nit, really meant to be on-set display. It can be used certainly in a color grade suite, but we put a handle on it. We put 4-pin power. It's kind of something that you're going to be able to have on set. And what's really amazing is, and this is something that only Canon can do right now, we're able to do with a single 3G SDI cable live 4K viewing. But you have to use our camera and you have to use our display. Because what it's doing is it's not actually sending video out of there, it's sending just data. And on the other end, similar to the way the Odyssey or anyone else reads our RAW, it's debarring it inside of the display and giving you that live 4K image. We actually have that set up here, right over here with our C300 Mark II. It's pretty remarkable. So if somebody's wanting to do HDR 4K viewing on set and doesn't want to deal with the 4 cables that's usually required for 4K live viewing, this is a really, really good setup. This is the back of it. You can kind of see, you can still do your quad 4K. It's not just meant for Canon cameras. It just works really, really well within the Canon system. It's also HDMI 2.0 compatible. So we have a little XC10. You can actually see one mounted right up there. It's a little $2,000 4K little hot rod camera, small 1-inch sensor with a fixed lens. That has 4K out, so you can actually plug that directly into this and get a live UHD 4K signal. Here's just a basic photo of the camera with a Noga arm on it, and you'll see when we're doing our RAW, it actually will match the file name. So if you wanted to do an internal 4K recording in our new codec and a 4K RAW, all those names are going to sync up. So if you just want to do some sort of offline with the 4K image that's compressed, and then you want to go later to your RAW so you can have more data for the color correction, the Odyssey 7Q will do that. But you have to remember, this is a very large file. 256 gigabytes is going to give you about 14 minutes. So it is a monster. This isn't, everyone does RAW a little differently right now. I think a lot of people associate RAW as like the way 4K is similar. It's a different flavor per manufacturer. So you just have to know what the strengths and the weaknesses of everyone's RAW is before you jump into RAW recording. So we've done something really, really special to me is we finally have moved our info outside of the image. So you can see here from this slide now, our old camera info was kind of superimposed over top of the video, just like our video cameras, our XF305 cameras and 205s. Now with our cinema cameras, we have now moved our info to the outside, which is really important because when you're on set, you want the info, you know, people need this info, but they also want to see edge to edge what the image actually is. It seems like something very simple, but it's a first for Canon. So you'll see here, this is kind of the way Arri does their info. This is the standard in the industry, so you want it to get moved closer to this. You get all your info without seeing it. It's very easy to understand. Red does the exact same thing. They actually crop out the edges and really allow you to focus on that image while having all of your info. We're now kind of in that family now with the C300 Mark II. So one thing I really like is that with this camera, you can do 3 different formats all at the same time on set while you're shooting. You can actually do more than that, but 3 is really kind of the standard that you might do. So one of them would be this Odyssey or some third-party recorder taking our RAW file. The other one is we have added CFast slots, so the camera has CFast now instead of compact flash, just requiring more data per second for the 4K. And then we also have an SD card slot actually in the front of the camera that'll record HD 8-bit 420 proxies. And you can actually put a LUT on there, so if you want your editor to not look at that flat, kind of milky log image, you can just burn in like a 709 or a 2020 LUT and let them get starting to edit and then resync to all your 4K masters later. This is our new XF utility. This is a free download. This is kind of just used as a media management. This isn't meant to transcode or turn it into a ProRes or anything like that. It's really meant to maintain metadata through the process. This is how you can kind of ensure it. So you'll see when you bring in a file, this is kind of all of those 3 different files that I was telling you about. Kind of the sweet spot on the camera, as I was saying, is that I think the 2K 444 RGB 12-bit. Right now, if someone said, I want to shoot the 300 Mark II, that's what I would push them on, unless they said, hey, we're doing this for Netflix, we have to shoot 4K. Because to me, I like more color. I like better sampling. I like shades of colors as opposed to just resolution. But it's very subjective. You have to pick the right tool for the right job. And some tools, some projects are going to require high resolution for motion stabilization or reframing or just VFX composition. But some projects don't need that. If you're doing a show, we're on the new Chelsea Handler show. They're not doing a lot of that stuff in post. They have to do 4K, but the DP was really pushing for that 444 12-bit because she was really, really excited about that. This is our Cinema RAW development. This is a free download as well. This is how you'll manage our RAW workflow. If you want to shoot RAW, this camera and our C500 will do it. They require the external recorder. You can bring it into this program and actually export it to ProRes 444 or DPX files or even this OpenEXR ASIS. Some things that are different for the C300 Mark II, as I said, the 3 different recording formats. We've lowered the price to $12,000 now, so we're offering a lot in that $12,000 package. This is something that's simple, but I just think is really cool. We offer a dual battery charger, and they charge at the same time. So when you're on set and you're running through batteries, especially if your battery or your recorder is taking a Canon battery, you need this type of tool on set. This is something we provide, no extra charge, comes in the box with it. But this is it. This is the thing that if you want Canon over everything else, it's probably because of our dual pixel autofocus. This is something that we've worked very, very hard on, and I think we have the best autofocus on the market. Now, this isn't a tool that's meant to replace ACs. It's just meant to be another tool in the toolbox. In certain situations, autofocus can actually work better than a manual operator. And it's not really about taking jobs, it's about using the right tool for the job. So to me, I love showing this video to people and I love showing them the autofocus because I think we've finally gotten to the point where you can use this in a professional way. So this is a little demo video that'll kind of show you the C300 Mark II and what the autofocus can do with it and what you can do with our log 2. This is our new flat, very flat setting that'll get you those 15 stops of dynamic range. So this is traditionally what you'll see from our C300 original with the autofocus. It's that center box. Not a lot of people like using it because with HD aspect ratios, they like to put people in the left, they like to put people on the right. But if you're doing something where it's right in the center, you really can use that center box situation now. But you do have the option now to move that box within 80% of the frame. Now this is really the key right here. This is the face detection. Canon has developed a system where it's looking for these 2 eyes and nose to create that T to do autofocus. Now this one I love because this is at a 2.8, 70 to 200, and it's just following the whole time. Same exact thing here. For certain types of shots, this autofocus works so well. I've seen people using it wide open on those slider dolly shots. Oh, real quickly, I actually love this one. Watch as she turns her back. It loses the focus for a second, picks it up in the center, and then re-picks her up right again. So to me, for certain types of shots, that AF works really well. Now look how good the skin tones can look with this log 2. With a simple grade, this is the log 2, you can really get, and this isn't a lot of lighting, this is 1, maybe 2 lights doing the shoot. You get the great Canon skin tones. And then I love this one here. Look, it's picking up her face in the actual mirror, in the reflection. And you can scroll using the joystick to go back and forth between one face and the other. So what I was saying earlier about the dolly is that people were moving the dolly and using the AF wide open, and they weren't having to worry about pulling the focus. They could focus on composition and moving the slider. So to me, it just takes one more thing off the operator's mind. So this is our new thing too. This is called the focus guide. Now let's say you don't actually want to use the autofocus. This utilizes the autofocus technology without actually pulling the focus. It's just a readout. And if you see the arrows on the top and the bottom split as you get closer or closer to focus or out of focus. And if you know your lens, the top is post-focus and the bottom is pre-focus. So if you know which way to spin your lens, you're never going to pull the wrong way again. And what's really cool is, and actually this is my favorite part, this shows how good Canon Log 2 is. She's wearing white and the skin tones are perfectly, everything's exposed properly. This is so hard to do on a lot of cameras because that white just overexposes way before actual skin tone starts to overexpose. Now this one I love too because watch, the operator's using the focus guide and he pulls the wrong way here. Actually, I think it's in this shot. See that? You literally could see the arrows go the wrong way like they made a mistake. So what I love is that if they use the autofocus right there, they wouldn't have missed even a second of that. Now I'm not saying everything is going to, autofocus is going to take over. It's killing jobs. Because to me, everyone says, oh, the AC all they do is pull focus. And if you're on set, you know that's not true, because the AC is in charge of so many other things besides keeping the focus, maintaining the camera, keeping it clean, knowing all the buttons. They have plenty of other things on set that they could be doing right now for a few shots while you maybe just operate a talking head or something like that. So these are some words actually from one of our other field reps, Paul, who works out of New York. Really, really great guy. He's got a lot of rental house experience, so he really knows these cameras inside and out. He actually, on his interview, told my boss right now how many screws we have inside of the camera. He's one of those guys who just took the camera apart, and he's really amazing. He found some things in the field that he wanted to communicate to people. The first one is our top handle. You can see that the top of the C300, you can't actually get to those screws. It takes two Allen screws that go in there. You can't actually get to the top of it through there, so you need a right angle. But we're also, with the camera, when you buy it, you get a little, the bottom of the Allen wrench has those like ridges cut out, so you can actually do it from an angle. So just something to know, you will need a right angle Allen wrench, but what Paul's suggestion is keep the helmet and the handle connected and just do the screws on the side. Then you don't actually need a right angle Allen wrench. You can use a traditional straight one. I like those types of things because when I'm in the field and I don't have the tool I need, it's nice to have some flexibility. Something that you'll see here, this is a funny shot because I tried to put the old C300 Airy cage onto the C300 Mark II, and the C300 Mark II is just big enough to the point where it's not going to fit in there. This was a very, very horrible way I put this on. I just wanted to do it for the photo. It does not fit, even though that it might look like it'll configure. You have to buy the right accessories for the C300 Mark II. Your C300 accessories, especially if they're a cage, are not going to fit on here. Simple things like base plates and stuff may still work, but cages definitely not. We're moving in the right direction of switching our mounts. You can send your EF or Cinema lock, which is Canon's what looks like a PL mount, which we actually have on here. It's like a positive lock, but it's Canon's EF. You can now send them into the factory and change them, or you can buy the kit and actually do it yourself. It just ends up voiding the warranty. So we're moving in the direction of user changeability mounts, because that's what a lot of people want. They need flexibility. When you spend $12,000 on a camera, you want to know that it can work on a lot of different jobs, not just your EF mount jobs. So we're moving in that direction. We're not quite there yet. We've heard people's feedback, and I think we're going to be at one point. But right now, if you want to switch them out, you're free to do it on your own. We'll sell you the kit. Most rental houses I've talked to have done it in under 10 minutes. They said it's not even a problem. Doesn't even require shimming to go PL to EF. You only need to shim if you're going to go to our Cinema lock. So we're moving in the right direction. So C300 Mark II, no vector scope, but we have an RGB parade. So I like to use this to measure color. Just another tool that is a very expensive thing to buy in the field that we now have in the camera. Variable bit rate. Now this is something that I don't think was communicated to the public very well, but it's something I think Canon does very, very well. Variable bit rate kind of has a negative connotation around it, but what Canon's variable bit rate is, and sorry, I apologize for all of the wording. I don't love a lot of this stuff, but this was Paul's email he sent out to all of us. I think it's really important that we say this to the customers. So I'm just going to read it. The C300 II and XF AVC, which is our new codec, approaches this quite a bit differently. He's got a funny sense of humor, though, because of its use of the intra-frame compression. For example, in 4K, the camera has a bit rate of 410 megabits per second, but instead of throwing away the unused bits in each frame, the codec is reallocating them to areas that require more aggressive processing. For example, if I'm shooting with a white wall behind me, I don't need a lot of information for that white. But if I have a very intense plaid shirt or something with a lot of changes in details, the camera's actually reallocating bits of information to those areas that require more processing, which is why you're not seeing as much moire, you're not seeing kind of those awkward edges that you see a lot of the times from cinema products. So we're doing something really, really amazing in here. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but the best part that I like is the last sentence where he goes, our method of VBR, which is variable bitrate, is absolutely not a negative, and I wish there was a way to separate it from the definition of VBR that has pervaded the industry. It's more like a variable constant bitrate, and it's a positive. And the reason he says variable constant bitrate is because there's always 410. Even when it throws away, it's not throwing away any of them, it's reallocating them in certain areas. You're always going to have 410 megabits. We're just understanding that certain areas in the frame may require more processing. So that's what I think the 4K and the C300 Mark II is right now the pinnacle of what Canon can offer you in cinema products, unless you're doing the RAW. That's just going to give you a little more flexibility in color. So now I want to show you guys the ME20. This is the thing that I'm most excited about. This is a camera that is very exciting to me. It's very unique. It has something really, really interesting inside of it. But it was really created, and you can tell by the name that it was really created by engineers, because ME20F-SH is such an engineering or military style name. What's cool about it is you can actually decipher all of the features of the camera in this name. So M stands for multi-purpose. This is the first in our series of multi-purpose cameras. E is EF. 20 is the model number. I actually don't know where that one came from. F is full frame, which is the exciting part of this camera. It actually has a full frame sensor on the inside of it. Dash S, which is SDI. H is HDMI. So you look at this name, and yes, it's probably not a very sexy name, but it's very, very practical. So the reason I love this camera is because it's been stripped of kind of everything that you see in a lot of other products. Our cinema products have so many features inside of them. They're really great on set. This has maybe 15 to 20 menu functions actually inside of it. It doesn't do a lot. All it does is produce a great image. That's really what they were getting to. They wanted to provide something that could be multi-purpose, meaning we could sell this product to cinema people, we could sell it to fixed camera people, we could sell it to broadcast people, because there's a lot of cinema products on the market right now. So the idea is, let's try to make something that could cast as wide a net in terms of camera sales as possible. And let's try to keep the bodies all the same and really just interchange the sensor, so that as we grow this line, your accessories aren't going to change too much. So that's kind of what I think Canon's whole strategy behind this ME20. And the first one that came out, we actually have a second one that we've already announced, we haven't released it yet, that just has a different sensor on the inside. This is the one, because there's something really amazing. It's a whole new sensor on the inside of here, meant to be a low light monster. This is the best low light camera in the world that's sitting here in front of you. And the way we did that was, instead of cramming more pixels, meaning 4K resolution, we just made very large photo sites on the actual sensor. So it's allowing more light to come in. And that's really, there's a couple other competitive products on the market. This is the first cinema low light solution, meaning it has really solid SDI outputs, it has HDMI, it's very, very lightweight, you can adapt it to batteries and things like that. Has an incredible rolling shutter in it where you're not seeing any of that jello. But the secret is that full frame sensor. That's the thing that's kind of been lost in the marketing of this product, and something I really want to talk about today. So a year ago, I'm part of a team of about 10 of us. We cover the whole country for cinema. The ME20 was brought here. It was kind of our first time we actually got our hands on it. And we'd only seen it at trade shows. When you kind of see the product, it almost feels like you don't want to touch it. You're almost kind of like, I'm going to break it or something, because it's very small. There's no handles. You know, it's really, it usually just sits on a tripod, and you know, you're kind of like, oh, cool, where we have it in a low light demo or something like that. But when we finally got it here and we put it on our shoulder, we realized what we had here, and it's that full frame cinematography, which is very, very popular right now. All of our products, and most of the products on the market, cinema-wise, have Super 35 or smaller size sensor. Super 35 really is that sweet spot for cinema right now. So Canon's been making full frame sensors for still cameras for years. We had that incredible success with the 5D2 and the 5D3, but you're stuck with the compression that comes with the DSLR. And that was kind of what's so exciting to me about this camera, because when we put it on our shoulder and we looked through the viewfinder, it was different. It felt very different than when you're photographing with a cinema product. It just, we were a little bit closer to our subjects because of the larger sensor, and we were also just getting more left and right. Kind of like when you shoot anamorphic or use anamorphic lenses, you're getting more out of what you're shooting. So we really said as a cinema team, because this was really made for security and government and things like that, because that's really going to be the main customer for this product, because you can see in extreme low light. But the cinema customer is someone who's going to be very, very excited about this. So it's got a larger sensor. What are the advantages of a larger sensor? Right off the bat, wider field of view. If I put a 24 millimeter on this, it's going to look different than if I put a 24 millimeter on my cinema camera or on your DSLR. So right off the bat, I'm getting more out of each lens. So it's changing the way you're photographing. I'm closer to my subject to get the same size as I would be getting with a Super 35 size camera. I'm getting better low light performance. And that's the real reason they started with the large full frame sensor. They said, how do we make the best low light camera in the world? Let's put the biggest sensor Canon can make in it, and something where we actually have lenses that can cover it. We could make a larger sensor, but we don't have any lenses that could actually go on the front without vignetting. So the idea was start with the largest sensor we can make, which is what Canon calls full frame. Better dynamic range, less noise, better overall picture quality, and here's the real key, that shallow depth of field that everyone loves about that DSLR photography or cinematography. You get that really, really shallow depth of field, which may not be practical for a lot of shots, but for talking heads and things like that, it's really, really great. You get that great bokeh. So I don't love a lot of charts like this. This was pulled off the Red website, but I just wanted to put in context where the sensor size lives on the market right now, because large sensor or full frame cinematography is very, very popular right now. We've seen a few cameras released, and then Panavision announced a very, very new camera coming out with a very large sensor inside of it. But if you look at where the ME20 sensor sits at the bottom with the arrow, that's what we call full frame 35, or what used to be called VistaVision, which was like Hateful Eight and The Revenant that was shot this year. Our image circle is that 43.3 millimeters. Now, if you look at what else Red is offering right now, the only time you ever get a larger sensor is in their new 8K full frame sensors and HDs that are coming out really soon. Even the 6Ks have a little bit of a smaller sensor. Now, we're not talking resolution, we're just talking physical size of the sensor. This ME20 is coming in, and it's a $20,000 HD camera, but it's coming in at much of a lower price point than any other full frame or large sensor cinema product on the market. And this kind of gives you a better idea of what I was talking about with the focal length. So the full frame is the wide on the outside, and then that one step in is that APS-C, or what would be close to a Super 35 size sensor. So right off the bat, you're just seeing a different spatial relationship when you're photographing. And that's just what I think is really, really exciting about this product. It's the full frame. It's full frame plus low light. To me, those are the two things that you want to think about with this. So these were some of the first tests that I did with a cinematographer who used this on a feature film. It's going to be on a Duplass Brothers feature that's going to be coming out soon. And they used 2 of these cameras. This was the test that we did that really sold the cinematographer on this camera. So I really like this slide. This is what it looks like when you record the footage out of the first SDI terminal. It actually has the information, and it actually burns the information in if you don't turn it off out of the first SDI port. The second one is our record out. It's completely clean, but you need something coming out of that first port to actually control the camera. So what I love about this slide, though, is it says a lot. If you look at all the different settings, we're wide open at a 1.4 with one of our cinema primes. 42 dB is 100,000 ISO. Now this camera is fully capable of 4 million ISO, but we've found that this camera really is not going to be used in a cinema way, probably much higher than this 100,000 ISO. But still, that's pretty incredible. Most cameras on the market right now, you start pushing them past 6400, and they really start oversaturating or losing skin tone color, and you're doing a lot to kind of control all that. Here's what we did. Oh, and one other thing too. The internal ND is on. Now, why would we do that? Mainly because this cinematographer was going to shoot a lot of stuff on streets where they couldn't control a lot of the external lights. When you start using that high ISO, these sources that are seemingly small become like the sun. When you start shooting in this higher ISO range, all of your normal sources become solar. So the idea was, let's control it a little bit on the camera end so we can maybe help bring those down to a not distracting level. So what we did was we ran it through Neat Denoiser, which is like a $400 program you can buy. And I'd encourage you guys to come scrutinize this. This is what we did just with one pass through. So I'll flicker back and forth, but really look at the sky. And it keeps the skin tones fairly sharp. You know, it's very, very pleasing. This is what we were able to do. All they were doing right now is bouncing a battery-powered 1x1 LED off of the chest of the gaffer. They were using a black bounce just to give a little bit of rim on the side of the face there. So again, this is at 102,000 ISO. This is in the desert. And what was remarkable to me is that whole rock right there is lit with a 650 watt light. So they went out there with a little putt-putt generator, a small little 1K light, which most people have, the 1K and the two 650s and a couple little guys. That's all that was lit with this rock. Little Neat Denoiser. Look, we're getting some stars still. It's very, very clean. I mean, these guys were able to go out to the desert and do this type of shoot. Now, they didn't say, I don't want to use light. They said, I want to keep the image dark so that the actors feel that it's dark, to keep the actors in the store, in the mindset that they wanted. They could have used any product on the market, but the director said to me, Alex, I want it to be dark. I want them to really feel the darkness, because usually when you're doing those night exteriors, which are the most expensive thing you can do, you're very high up with these very big sources, and you're just trying to mimic that moonlight. And half the time it's very, very bright. Even though the image looks totally natural, on set it feels very lit. So he was like, hey man, I want something that really, really can be used to keep it dark. Here's Orion's belt, a little bit of cleanup. Again, cleaning that noise up is very, very easy. This took maybe 2 minutes on Neat Denoiser. So, great segue into what we're doing here today. This camera, more than any other Canon product, requires rigging. You could take our C300 or our C100 or even our DSLRs and really get a decent image. I would say you probably should rig it, but you don't really have to. This one, you'd need something, because even if I were to put a lens on here and hold this, I still need power, I still need recorder, and I still may need an EVF or something to operate on it. So this camera, more than anything else, requires support from the filmmaking community. And that's what I love about filmmaking. It's a team sport. You know, we come from still photography where you could usually do your art by yourself and a computer. When you're filmmaking, you usually have to work with all these different people. When you're on set, you're seeing all the different brands. So that's what I really love about filmmaking, is it's not just like you're going to show up with just a Canon solution. You're probably going to show up with Canon and about 6 other brands, and they all have to work together. You know, we want the products to work together. We're not trying to have some proprietary mount so that you can't use someone else's thing. We really want to be in the filmmaking community. So this was kind of the feature that I was just talking about. This is how they rigged it, and I was talking earlier about how we don't have a rig yet for this. This is such a new camera, so it becomes that kind of Frankenstein. You know, you're building the erector set at the rental house. You know, trying to find different pieces. This is kind of the other side. You need the recorder. So this was the Odyssey, and you can see from this other slide they had the wireless video. They had the Teradek bolt. This was the traditional what you'd see on a high-end film with A-list stars that were attached in it. But it was kind of Wild West. We didn't know what to use. We were just kind of pulling whatever the rental house had. Here's another more stripped down. This was that guy Josh who shot the desert stuff. He wanted a very, very lightweight rig. He wasn't doing Video Village or anything like that. It was just him and the actors. Here's kind of the other side. Now he uses the Atomos Shogun, and what he does is he has his LUT right there on set. So he's basically monitoring off the LUT, even though the Canon does, this does 10-bit log. He's not baking it in, but he's basically exposing for what his LUT is going to be. This is probably the most bare, stripped down version of a handheld rig here. We've got wooden cameras handle on the top there. We were talking earlier about hopefully a cage at some point, but still very, very new. And then it's like hot rod cameras, riser, and then like a couple other pieces in there. So very Frankenstein-y. This was used for a, I think it's a Michael Crichton's new Netflix series that's going to be coming out. They wanted to do a simulation of that Sicario scene where they're running around with that infrared camera. So this was kind of the same thing. We put a little handle on the bottom, and then we put a battery belt and a recorder on the actual belt, so that all the operator had to do was point. They weren't actually like operating. They wanted something very, very small. This is Eve Cohen, who we were talking about earlier. She did a feature. She got it where I think is kind of the best way to operate it, which is more of like that gimbal style, or maybe even director's monitor where you have the 2 handles on the side. She was using the Zacuto EVF, and then they had the Odyssey as the AC record like monitor, but that was actually the recorder as well. I love this one because this is our 800mm lens. So what's so cool about it, this camera is that we have all of these lenses that will cover it. We've been making full frame cinematography or still photography lenses for years. So, you know, when other large format systems have been coming out, they're so new that they require intense support from high-end rental houses. They were rehousing Hasselblad lenses, medium format things. We have $2,000 lens options and under that actually work with this. So it's kind of like, and this is what Canon does very well, we take very high-end technology and bring it down to a mass market price, so to speak, probably a little bit more than some of the other competitors, but we bring this high quality down to this $12,000, $20,000 market as opposed to having an $80,000 or $150,000 product. And then I love this one too, because this is our old FD mount that a guy I know had it converted to EF, and it fully covered the sensor. I mean, this is probably $200 on eBay to get this lens. So it's really cool the options you have for this camera right now. We are really the company that should be bringing full frame cinema to the masses because we already have a large infrastructure and we know how to build this size sensor. I say it's a unique tool because to me, if you're looking to give larger size to your subjects in the frame, this is the camera that's going to do it for you, and you don't have to use a DSLR product. Less light, less crew. I know that's probably a taboo thing to say because we don't want people losing their jobs, but a lot of the times when we talk to some of these cinematographers, even big DPs like Rodney Charters, who is shooting a Michael Bay show right now called The Last Ship, they can't do some of their shots just because of budgetary reasons. And you're like, well, how do they have budgetary reasons? This is like a major show with a major producer behind it. They just look at it and they go, well, it's a small conversation. Do we really need it? They usually say no because it requires large lights and lots of crew to go out and do that. Now they can go get some of those shots that maybe weren't possible just because they was a little too expensive. They are like, you know what, let's just show up with like a few people and a few lights and we'll get what we need. More freedom for the actors. So specifically on the improv movie, it wasn't the Duplass brothers, if you're familiar with their work, it's very improv, but they have like a general idea. But the DP would say they'd show up, they'd light for a bunch of stuff, and then they'd be like, no, we want to do the scene over here. And then he felt comfortable just saying, yeah, let's just shift over. I'll light for, I don't need to light for too much. You know, I don't need to give a crazy exposure. And we have full 360-degree coverage a lot of that times. And then the best low light camera in the world. It's just something that we have been saying from the beginning. I talked a lot about the full frame cinema, but it really is the best low light camera in the world. You'll have trouble finding any other product that's going to perform the way this does at 100,000 ISO. It just doesn't exist on the planet right now, especially without having all that jello and things that you get from DSLR cinematography. That's it for me. Thank you so much for coming.